I'm bringing the logs in. Welcome back to the channel. It's very nice to see you. I'm bringing the logs in from outside because it's October, we're heading to November, and it's going to be cold. So I'm filming today One Shot Wonder on the vlog. As you know, I've been trying an experimentation with one shots pretty much, apart from the occasional thing when we went to Leon, who's Leon? Lee on the Solent the other day, which was an edited version. But mostly I've just been experimenting with the filming techniques this month. Anyway, yes, as you know, I have a log burning stove, of course, and it's absolutely fantastic. I love it. But one of the chores that I enjoy doing, actually, I love all this paraphernalia that you have to do. You don't have to. I've only got a very small garden, as you know, and as I've got a very small garden, there's not a lot of place for storage of logs, so I am bringing some in to keep them dry. They are all seasoned, of course they're seasoned. Very lucky to have my wood burning stove, and I love it immensely. So I pack in a few over there to keep them going. I've been having a cold, a lingering cold. So rarely do I get a cold. It's so rare. Although in the last incident, knowing the lovely Julia, and Julia, if you're watching, don't take this the wrong way, but having children, you know, Julia's got her kids. They, of course, go to school. It's half term at the moment. But they go to school, they mix with other kids, and those other kids, they're all sharing, very caring and sharing all those germs. And as a consequence, of course, Julia and I being a couple now, I've noticed that I am getting them passed on to me. And the old immune system is not used to dealing with the germs of other people, of course. You know, when you live on your own, to a certain degree, you don't have to worry about that kind of thing, which is great. My father, bless him, would always say, if you've got a cold, don't come round. I think he was a hypochondriac, my dad. He was worried about everything. Everything worried him. And I hope that I don't have too many of those traits. I'm not too worried about health things because I think my immune system is actually pretty good, and I get over these things more and more easily, funnily enough. Especially now that I'm eating a more healthier diet and I've cut out the sugar and the bread, although I have been making my own bread again, and that's been quite fun. So we nearly got enough in. I probably need to get some more. I did a little experiment earlier with these radio microphones that I use. These are the Rode mics. I forget what they're called. They're the little box ones. For those of you who have technical interest in microphones and things. But as soon as I go out the door here in the deep blurred background of this shot, as soon as I go out of this door, because it's not line of sight, it disappears. I'll show you what I mean. I'll go out now as if to get some more logs. I've just threshold. And then I'll come back in and hopefully you can hear me again. So it probably cut out during that, but not to worry. So I've just thrown a whole load of logs into the kitchen on the floor here. I need to clean and mop the house a bit and get that all going. I might actually have to get some more. I do like to have a store about this high, but this will be all right. They'll dry out. Some of these have been sopping wet over the last few days because the weather, of course, has been down in Sussex quite wet, damp. However, it's very mild. Now, years ago, I used to do the entertainment stuff, and on the 5th of November, I don't know, it must have been about a 10-year stretch, every 5th of November, I would be booked at the Redoubt Fortress in Eastbourne They'd have a private, well, it wasn't a private function, a ticketed function, I suppose. And I would be juggling and unicycling in the evening on bonfire night. And sometimes it was 3 nights and sometimes it was only 2 nights. And then I would be eating fire, blowing fire, rolling it all around the old semi-naked body. I was in the buff in those days. And the thing about it was, because I did it over a 10-year period, I was very much aware that at that point, suddenly it got cold. So I always take it, if it's cold on November the 5th, I know it's a normal year. I know people go on about global warming this and global warming that and all that nonsense. I am afraid to say, for those people who are a bit sensitive about these things, and I had a listener who was extremely sensitive when I said, do you know what, I just don't think that it is such a catastrophe that everybody is making out, the global warming nonsense. I think there's a bit of a scam. I think it's a huge money-making concern for all sorts of businesses. And this particular listener, as soon as he heard this, and maybe you're one like this, I don't know, got very tetchy and said, right, I can't listen to anything else you say. He enjoyed the content, but because I happened to mention that I didn't believe in the hysteria of the global warming project, as it were, he immediately had to unsubscribe and disappear, unfriend, everything. And you think, blimey, what is it? What kind of a world are we in where you can't have a difference of opinion? Where you can just say, look, you know, I'm not sure this is quite what it is. I think there's something else behind this, that it's a money-making thing. Not a conspiracy theory, but I think people have got on the bandwagon and they're using this excuse to push many agendas, all from separate places, and lots of people are doing the same thing. And of course, the more we're told about it, the easier it is to accept it. But I remember in about 2006 when I ran my Vogue Show podcast, an audio podcast from my beach hut, so-called beach hut, I should say. And it first came to my attention, and I have somewhere a recording of me saying back then, 2006 or whatever it was, global warming, there's no such thing. Not man-made global warming, you know. Now, of course, we call it climate change, as if the climate has never changed. And of course, it has changed. But anyway, my point really there was I had a viewer who was so fickle, unfortunate, really nice bloke. But as soon as I said that, I just don't understand that mentality that we have. What are we going to do in this world now? It seems to me we have polarized a nation of people. How did we get to that point in which we have polarized a nation of people, in which, firstly, you can't have this difference of opinion on anything, that if you are of the opinion, for example, the whole gender identity thing, if you think, well, I don't really agree with these pronouns and things, I have adverbs, just so you know, and I have nouns and the other things. Not just different pronouns, but I have adverbs. That's my beef on that. But if you disagree with that, suddenly you're labelled an idiot or whatever, and people have a moan at you. If you disagree with the global warming, people will have, if you disagreed with the lockdowns or the fact that you didn't think that COVID was quite as bad as it was made out to be, or indeed that you disagreed with the vaccination in terms of vaccinating children, babies, people under 50, people who are perfectly healthy, or if you're sceptical about the vaccine and maybe these strange deaths that we've been hearing about and the efficacy of something that had been barely tested. It just seems very odd. We live in a world in which you can't question anything. And I wonder if it's more about the fact that we are being dumbed down, that we're not allowed to question. Because why shouldn't you question things? That's what I don't understand. Why shouldn't you just say, look, okay, I'm perfectly happy to have my mind changed if firstly you listen to what my point of view is and answer the questions I have, instead of just having a diktat that says this is the science, this is the only science, there is no other opinion, and if you don't share our opinion, then you're an idiot. And I mean, that's not a real world that I really want to live in. I've got gloves here. I've been reading a lot. You know, I've got lots of books. Here's a book that I've just ordered some more in the series. One of my lovely viewers said he was related to a chap called Fred Archer and that he wrote books about the countryside. So, books, I immediately went online and had a look. And now, in theory, it would be nice to have just nipped down to Badger Books and had a look to see if they'd got any. But I did go online, and I appreciate that. You know, it's a bit of a hypocritical thing, isn't it? I love books and I love small businesses, and there I was going to the big globalists to see if they had it. But, you know, unfortunately, it's very difficult not to be a hypocrite. You can have your own standards, but it's difficult in a world to sometimes to live by those standards because you're constantly unable to do so. You know, I like using money and cash, but we've become more and more pushed into a cashless society, which I don't think is a good thing. People will disagree with me and they'll think we don't need money or any of those, you know, real hard cash, things that you can actually scratch a window with. And some people will say that that's not what we want. And I completely disagree. And you'll call me an idiot because I disagree with you. That's the way of the world at the moment. The lovely Julia is going down to see her, hang on, what would she be? A niece, I suppose, is it? Her brother has had a baby. Well, his wife has had a baby, and that's the relationship with Julia. Anyway, she's going off to see this newborn baby. And I just thought to myself, what kind of a world are newborn babies being born into, in which we're so polarized? Keeps coming back to this same damn theme, which is really a shame. Anyway, this is called A Lad of Evesham Vale, and it all takes place around Evesham in the sort of West Country, written in the 70s about the 1930s country life. I've been reading a lot about that, the cohesion of the countryside, the way that people got on. Yes, they had their little arguments, and that's what's great about this, is you can see how things were changing. But I find it really fascinating. That period of change, in a way, was the last time for me that England was a cohesive, proud nation, just at the process of the war, the Second World War. After that, it does seem as if we've become more atomized and we've been pulled apart, and the core of England has been distributed in different places. And I don't know whether we'll ever get it back, but I do hope so. And I read loads of these countryside books now, and you just read about this wonderful. Yes, it was hard work and backbreaking, but the village was a village. People had a purpose within that village. It was a community. There were wider communities that people were generally serving, and everybody was on the same side. They may have had their own disputes, and there may have been problems with money, and people were poorer and people were richer. Well, we're still in that situation today. And I would argue that it seems to be worse. We don't these days know who our neighbours were. These people knew all their neighbours. That by having those neighbours who knew what you did, you had a community that looked after itself, that standards, you couldn't be too extreme and out of place, because the society you lived in wouldn't let you. You were proud in your house and elsewhere. Yes, things were going on behind closed doors, but that was forever thus. The hierarchy worked because not everybody can be in a society or even know what to do if they had more money than other people. Some people don't have those aspirations. They just want to go and do their work and get through their day, sit in the sun, have a pint of cider or whatever it was, and just enjoy basic living. Some people, that's all they want. Other people want to manipulate other people. And it is a very odd world. I find these sort of books reassuring because it shows that for years and years and years, we had that cohesion and we had something to live for and work towards as a community. I'm not quite sure what we're all working towards at the moment. We have a new Prime Minister. I don't really know what he stands for. I mean, he is... his heritage, and this isn't a racist comment, and I know people will worry that it might be, his heritage is not based in this country. That shouldn't be a problem, and I'm hoping it isn't a problem. I'm hoping that he is invested enough in this country to see it go well. But we're just in this weird state of affairs where you're trying to work out where we all are. Yes, we're all on a planet. But just because we're all on the planet at different points and that we might move about a bit doesn't mean that we're all the same. We're not. Clearly, our traditions, our customs, our history plays so much on our personalities and on our ability to get on with one another, our shared relationships, our shared conversations over the fence in your local little village, where people are sharing the same experiences, the same hardships. People just seem to understand one another so much better. And I think that's an important thing. And I don't know that these people who are in power, who have so much money that they can't walk a mile in my shoes or your shoes, really understand what we want. As much as they say, oh yes, I listen, we listen. But you can't help thinking that they're only really listening and know those other people around them who are in the same very high echelons of making money, and the people beneath them just seem to get on. I don't know. I feel sometimes that we're all being a bit punished for it. Anyway, what do I know? I mean, my opinion... Sorry, I'm just going to sweep this little up here. All this with the old... dustpan brush. There we go. I need to mop the floor in the kitchen today. It's a bit of a day of doing some chores around the house. Anyway, I've got that all my logs in that I need. They're going to dry up quite nicely. That means that when the cold weather comes, I'm not going to be too bothered by it. I've got some candles. We're told we're having power cuts, aren't we? Apparently in January and February, because this country stupidly hasn't turned to our own resources and thought, well, let's be a bit more independent. My worry, of course, and you've heard me say this many times, we're building on farmland, where we're putting houses on farmland so we can no longer grow as much as we used to. We're being told that we can't eat meat, which is a ridiculous thing, that we've got to eat bugs, which is another ridiculous thing. And that bugs have, I think in there, I can't remember the terminology, the ecoskeleton, is it? Or whether the exoskeleton or the whatever it is. There's certain bad things about that, which isn't good for us, although we're being sold this make-believe story. We've been eating animals since we crawled out of the sea, pretty much, and we've survived because of it. And look at where we are because of eating a range of different foodstuffs. We're cleverer, we're independent thinkers, we're civilized mostly, and now they're trying to dumb us down as if we are the cattle and the fodder. And for my part, I'm having none of it. Anyway, I didn't mean to get on all of this. I just wanted to get my logs in, but you got me started in this vlog. So anyway, I'm going to go and mop the floor now. So have a lovely day, and I'll catch you again on another one. Ta-ta! Right, where did I put the mop?